So what are global events? Let's see if we can address that first of all. Well, here's an example. I just realised you guys may well be too young to remember this, but this is London 2012, okay? So this was the Olympic Games in London 2012, and what a year it was. So there's an example of a global event. Well, what else? More recently, by the way, I'm recording this in 2020, just in case you're from the future, you lot. But here we've got the FIFA World Cup, okay? So here we've got the FIFA... let me write FIFA out properly. The FIFA World Cup. I'll put WC, and this was in 2019 in France. So just down the road from London, I suppose. But you know what? This could also be a global event. And you see here, it's the third World Inter-Universities Championships held in Barcelona. And I didn't choose this one for anything in particular, apart from I spend a lot of time in Barcelona, Bisca Catalunya. But also, I just really like the design, so I thought it would be a nice one. I thought basically you wouldn't have heard of it before, and I thought, okay, let's see if we can apply this to that as well. All right. So this, let me just write this as BCN for Barcelona. Obviously, you can see there it was last held, as I record, at least in 2017. Presumably there's another one in 2021, I guess. But the point I want to make here is these are global events. And really where I want to go with this session is I want to look into, well, why do people host these? And when I say people, I guess we're talking about host nations. So advantages for a host nation. Okay, so why host an Olympics? Why host a World Cup? Why host a World Championship? And I think we could be potentially talking about a city as much as we'd be talking about a nation. So I'm just going to put that in brackets. So what are the reasons ultimately cities will bid and do this? Okay, so I guess the first one is they tend to lead to investment. And that investment can bring with it new stadia. Remember, stadia is the plural of stadium. It basically means stadiums. New stadia and training facilities. Okay, so one advantage for the host nation is that they're going to have, I suppose, even like the excuse to invest in things that it's easy not to invest in at other times, all right? So the development of stadia, for example, I'm not sure with France. I think they had all of their football venues for the Women's World Cup available from when they recently ran European Championships and World Cups in France. But nevertheless, you take my point. Let's look at our next point. Countries and cities, for that matter, also really benefit from the notion of home advantage. I mean, I think it's really worth stressing that in London 2012, the Team GB finished in third place, I believe, behind the USA and China, the only two nations to finish further ahead. Finished ahead of Russia, for example, in medals table. I mean, a stunning, staggering achievement. So we get this notion of home advantage. It might be something that can play for or against those involved. But there you go. That's one interesting point. I also want to talk about the notion of national pride. Okay. Now, in terms of the Barcelona example here, you can literally see it. We have the logo is the outline of Antoni Gaudi's Sagrada Familia, and you can literally see that kind of nationalistic pride or architectural pride coming out of this. You can see with regard to the American team, albeit in France, showing that sort of nationalistic fervour. Here it is in the flag, and for the home nation, of course, that becomes a symbol of them as well. And I mean, I would say something to you here. I'm not a particularly patriotic person, but I felt one of the few times in my life, I'm not saying patriotism is bad, by the way, it's just I don't feel it very strongly. That's just a personal experience for me. But I've never felt more patriotic than I did during the London 2012 Games, for example. It's an interesting notion from the perspective of national pride, right? What about this one? What about that people will visit and tourism will be improved? Now, certainly with the World Cup, certainly with the Olympics, people will flock to those. I don't know whether lots of people will go and watch this university championship. I imagine it would be parents, family members, friends. Presumably they're going to go into Barcelona. Good excuse for a holiday as well, let's be honest, and go and watch this thing. So that makes a lot of sense from the host nation's perspective. The building of things and the increased investment, guys, that's an up arrow, by the way. That thing there's an up arrow. It might lead to more employment in the host nation, the host city. So, of course, that's very, very, very positive. We've also got the notion of, and I kind of want to put this in inverted commas here, we've got the notion as well of legacy. The inspiration of participation and performance which can come from these environments. And that legacy, I think, is really important to stress here. Perhaps more young people have taken up sport in the UK because of the London Olympics. Perhaps girls all over France are now playing football more than they did in numbers before because of the World Cup that was held in 2019. That legacy of participation and, for that matter, of actual infrastructure are really, really important. And that brings me to my last point. The last point is that infrastructure improves. So, I mean, I'll give you one example, but of course there are many. From the London 2012 games, there was the building of an entire new rail line through London. I believe it was called the Javelin. I think it's still there. I was on it fairly recently, actually. And that infrastructural development, the development in this case of the dockyards, in Stratford, where the stadium and the park was actually built, it's a development of infrastructure. This is now a really interesting place to go. It's really thriving, when before perhaps it wasn't. Again, that links back to legacy. That's all.